This is absolutely rich compound GLP-1 news. We're going to get into it. Before we do, welcome. Thank you for being here. My name is Dave Knapp. I'm the host of On the Pen, an obesity medicine news platform designed to empower you with information that helps you have better conversations with your medical providing team. If you're new here, make sure that you hit subscribe wherever you're watching. And we are going to dive into some breaking news that pertains to compounds, but primarily it pertains to branded medications. We're going to get into it right now and take your questions at the end. So make sure you drop a question in the comment with a Q in front of it when we're done going through this news. But big drug companies, specifically Novo, Nordisk, and Eli Lilly, have been screaming at us for the past couple years, telling us to be skeptical and asking us if we really know what is in our branded medications. They've taken full page ads out in major publications to warn us about the dangers of compound medications. I apologize for the blurriness of those images, but we have been warned and warned and warned that non-branded medications are inherently and intrinsically unsafe, and we should be skeptics. Well, should we be applying that same thing to Big Pharma? I think we probably should. Lilly ran a campaign, that one in bright red. It said, "Be a healthy skeptic." And Novo plastered ads all over major outlets featuring that syringe saying, "Do you really know what you're injecting into your body?" So the message that they've been giving us for 2 years has been clear. Compound or non-branded semaglutide and tirzepatide are dirty, they're unsafe, and you need to trust them for the FDA-approved versions. Trust the giants. Trust them. But the FDA's own inspection of Catalin, one of the main contract manufacturers for both Lilly and Novo, and now owned by Novo Holdings, the parent company of Novo Nordisk, in a deal consummated in December of 2024 that we followed for a year and a half here at On the Pen, puts this mess squarely on Novo Holdings and Novo Nordisk's shoulders. So what happened? Well, we've got a 22-page FDA report that we are going to post up on our Substack. You can get that at obesity.news. Again, that's obesity.news. You're just going to type that into your browser, and it's going to take you there. You're going to put your email in, and you're going to get updates just like this one. But this is crazy. We're going to go through what exactly was in this FDA report so that you can make informed decisions for yourself and have better conversations with your doctor. So inspectors walked through a Catalin facility and found a laundry list of failures that go straight to patient safety. And this is not an isolated event with Catalin. This is something that Novo Nordisk and the whole world has known for a long time. Catalin has had plants shut down by the FDA at times, going back to the early days of On the Pen when we were covering this. So what did they find? Well, they found mammalian hair inside sterile injectables, with over 20 incidents alone tied to hair contamination. They found particles and mystery debris. Vials and syringes had fibers, glass, and unknown foreign matter slipping past inspection systems. They had broken and leaking equipment with critical pumps and membranes that were left leaking for weeks, with some link to endotoxin contamination. Operators were breaking sterile barriers. Inspectors caught staff breaking first air, mishandling components, and using scratched equipment that could harbor bacteria. There were fake clean tests, so sterility media fills excluded the riskiest procedures, meaning that the plant was testing cleanliness on easy mode while real-world risks were left unchecked. Disabled audit trails. Data systems had audit features turned off, raising suspicion of possible cover-ups. And there were unchecked ingredients in millions of doses. Catalin actually relied purely on supplier paperwork instead of testing critical excipients like polysorbates, chemicals that have been tied to serious ethylene glycol poisonings in the past. Now, most of these issues were actually repeat violations, and the FDA had flagged them with Catalin before, and they were not fixed. Now, this is wild because Lilly and Novo both want patients to fear compounders. They want them to fear the lack of regulatory oversight when they compare what they have to go through with the FDA. Yet Catalent, one of the most heavily relied upon sterile manufacturing partners in the entire pharmaceutical industry, has been under FDA scrutiny for years. And Novo, now that they own Catalent, have not done enough to remedy these issues. That's what we're hearing from this FDA report. They completed the $16.5 billion acquisition in December of 2024, and Novo Nordisk even took over 3 finish and fill facilities from Catalent, or from Novo Holdings, once Novo Holdings consummated this deal, making this not a sort of side piece to what they're doing from a manufacturing, but a core part of their supply chain and the future of their supply chain. So why pour millions into scare campaigns against compounders when you're relying on an acquisition of a company with repeated citations for contamination, broken equipment, and weak sterility controls? This is huge. This is huge, and it all raises some really uncomfortable questions in terms of patient safety. Now, this isn't to say that all compound medications are safe, that all compound medications are superior to branded medications. That's not the argument that I'm trying to make here. But when these two companies have spent millions and millions of dollars to raise questions in the general public about the general safety and sterility of compound medications, and then one of the largest suppliers for the pharmaceutical world has a report like this come out, it raises some uncomfortable questions that Lilly and Novo, I have to imagine, don't want patients asking. So if Catalent's FDA inspected big pharma backed facilities can't keep hair and particles and microbes out of sterile injectables, could some of those 503B outsourcing pharmacies actually be running cleaner operations than the very plants that have been bringing branded medications to market? That's the question that it begs. And at the end of the day, the reason that I bring this story to you, it doesn't make me feel good. I have been a user of these branded medications for a long time. It doesn't make me feel good to bring this news, but patients deserve safe and effective medication. And you ought to be able to expect that safety would come from these FDA inspected facilities. But it sounds like these issues have not only been cited, but persisted with Catalent. Again, a company that is now owned by Novo Holdings. So the safety of these medications, it's clear, does not, or let me say the sterility of these medications doesn't come from billion-dollar logos or these ominous campaigns. It comes from transparency and accountability and sterility practices that actually work. So this report here from the FDA, again, we'll link it at obesity.news, is a reminder that skepticism about the safety and sterility of your medication cuts both ways. We need to be skeptical of wherever our medication comes from, and we need to demand as patients accountability wherever issues are found. But I think this also highlights that we need to be skeptical when we hear the giants telling us that they alone are the ones that can be trusted when it comes to safety and sterility of injectable medications. I have not posted the article up at obesity.news yet. The article will be forthcoming. So type into your browser obesity.news right now and put your email address in there, and you will get this article as soon as it is published. So I hope that you all will take a moment to do that. It will be forthcoming, and I will be embedding the actual FDA report in there so you can take a look for yourself. That is the breaking news this afternoon. That is, to me, something that patients need to be aware of. That is why we bring you this information. Again, it does not bring me joy to bring you a news story like this. We want to believe that because of the FDA inspections and because of oversight and accountability, that patients are being looked after. But I think this is an indication that we need to be aware of, and we need to be demanding accountability and transparency. If we're going to be injecting and paying the premium that we do for the injectable branded medications to the tune of 2-3 times what people are paying for the compounded versions, boy, we ought to know that these things are sterile and do not, potentially put our health at risk. So that's the news today. If you're new here, I just ask that you would hit the subscribe button. I think there are many of you, about 60% of you that do watch these videos that have yet to hit the subscribe button. Just take a moment, hit that subscribe button before we sign off here. Hit the bell for notifications so that you always get notified when we go live. A lot of times what we bring you is breaking news as it happens. That's, of course, what we're doing today. And we'll continue to do that. And we'll continue to look out for patients because patient safety is paramount. YouTube user has a question, which doesn't seem more of a statement than a question. But the question is, so how do we check out our compound pharmacy? So the compound pharmacies, again, are worthy of scrutiny in their own right. It's important to understand that there's two distinctions when it comes to injectable medications like GLP-1s, which is what we focus on this channel. 503A and 503B. 503A pharmacies are governed by their state board of pharmacy. So there's a really wide variation in the oversight and the enforcement that happens from state to state. So the first place you want to check is where your pharmacy is for your compounded medication. When you find the name of the pharmacy on the medication, and it should be on there. If there's no pharmacy name on there, you have a problem right away. But find that pharmacy and then look them up on the state board of pharmacy for the state in which they are in. That is the way that you're going to check and see what sort of violations that a 503A has. With a 503B pharmacy, you can actually find a list of registered outsourcing facilities. They are able to mass produce these, and they have to comply with the current goods and manufacturing process, which is actually an FDA overseen program. So you can go to the FDA website and you can actually find a list of registered 503B outsourcing facilities that manufacture injectable drugs. And you can find violations or issues through the FDA website as well. So two kind of distinctions to make. You got to find out what kind of pharmacy you're operating with. And then from there, you can kind of look them up with your state boards or directly with the FDA through the tools available on their website. This is a huge deal. This is a huge deal, and we're going to be covering this closely. I'll take any more questions that you may have for another minute or so before I need to crank this article out and move on with my day. But I wanted to bring this information to you as we have it. This is breaking news. This is just kind of breaking over the last 24 hours. We've had a chance to dig into this a little bit and wanted to definitely bring this to your attention. So curious to hear your thoughts in the comments of this video after you post it. You know, are you trusting your branded medications right now, or does this raise a red flag to you? Does this surprise you? I think this is all things that we need to be asking ourselves. Do you know where this plant is located? I believe this plant was located in Indiana. In the state of Indiana. Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for being the best part of what we do at On the Pen. I always see a lot of familiar names in here. Did want to, there was Vanity said, was there 20 vials contaminated? No, not 20 contaminated vials. There were 20 different violations for contamination. I don't know how many doses that equates to. And certainly, I think it's important to know that the FDA did not shut this facility down. I personally find myself surprised by that information, knowing that they can find contaminants like glass in injectable sterile medications, or they can find hair, and that's not a reason to shut down a plant like this. I think that's definitely a question we should be demanding answers from the FDA on that as well. But the current information that I have was that there were 20 different violations for those types of contaminations, not 20 vials. And I do believe that I read within there at some point that there were potentially, let me see here, scrolling back through my notes, that there were maybe, I don't want to, this is risky. This is not like the type of thing that Big Pharma wants people reporting on. So I know that I need to be careful with what I say here. But I believe that there were probably more than 20 doses affected. But we'll get a chance to look through that on the Substack. So we will see. We will see kind of what comes from this over the next couple of days. But I think we need to demand some accountability here, and I think there are this raises more questions than it does answers for, I think, the patient community. We also don't know what specific drugs were impacted by this, right? So we don't know whether this was any of the branded GLP-1 medications or if it was different sterile injectables. Like I said, Catalin has manufacturing contracts with many pharmaceutical companies, not Lilly and Novo explicitly, but Catalin is now owned by Novo Nordisk or Novo Holdings. And then in the deal with Catalin, Novo Nordisk netted several finish and fill sites. I'm not certain whether this one in Indiana is one of those, but if I had to guess, my guess would be that it is. But that's not a factual statement. That is my own personal guess. But I think there's still more to unpack here. But you heard it here first at On the Pen. If this kind of information helps you to have more competent and confident conversations with your doctor, that is the heartbeat behind everything we do here. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and drop a comment below. Let me know what your thoughts are, and we will catch you on the next one.